everyone, this is update for August 22, 2022, day 180 of the war and of the date of the date. So today we're going to touch a little bit on the economy, energy, food, and so on. It's all interrelated. And then we're going to switch to the military situation. As a heads up for the military situation, there's not much been going on today. The only thing that really happened is that Russian troops completed that village Blagodatne on Kherson bridgehead, but beyond that, there is no much progress. So now let's go back to the energy, economy, all that food and so on. So today, Euro finally went under $1, so basically 0.9 euro cents for $1. It's been flirting with that for a while, but today it firmly broke through that level, through one-to-one level, and all of this is related to what's going on in the energy in energy supply in Europe. So at this point, Europe only gets natural gas either from the US, which is super expensive, through LNG, or from Russia. And Russian gas goes actually through Ukraine and through Turkey. So that's pretty much it. So Nord Stream 1 stopped, Nord Stream 2 never even started. So then the price for natural gas in Europe hit like about 3,000 US dollars for 1,000 cubic meters. As you can imagine, no industry can survive that price. So price of electricity went to 7 euros per kilowatt in Germany. So that's the result, because most of the power generation in Germany is happening at this point, not in the past. It's happening either through alternative wind, solar, or natural gas. So because natural gas is so expensive, therefore electricity is so expensive. So as a result, there's a lot of closures or near closures of their industrial production, and that reflects on the FX market and on the value of euro. That's why it's going down. It's all related to, basically, we might be seeing kind of like a heart attack on the European economy, and more specifically on European industrial production. So where, as we mentioned, that could be shortages of literally anything. So we learned today that manufacturer of fertilizer in Germany, a company called KSW, I believe, that produces fertilizer, it's stopping production. Then there is another facility that's producing zinc in Netherlands also stopping. We mentioned about the stoppage of aluminium production in Slovakia. So as you can see, it starts to hit everywhere, and those are sort of resources that go into production of pretty much everything we buy as a consumers, more specifically obviously cars, but it definitely goes everywhere. And as a result of that, you see that German inflation and production, sort of producer price index, which is it's PPI in Germany, hit like 37%, I believe, year on year. There is expectation that CPI in the UK will be between 10 to 15%. New read. So as you can see, things really getting out of control, and that's all a result of this misguided energy policy. And what we specifically mean by that is that sole focus on alternative energy and forced sort of transition to alternative energy simply does not work. It backfires, and even in what is more sort of problematic is that actually Russian leadership realizes this. They fully aware that this cannot happen just simply due to the principles of physics, basically. Or what it really means is that the cost of energy gonna skyrocket for everyone, and we're really going to return to some kind of form of feudalism, or in some parts of the world to slavery. Because if you think that those things of the past, they were things of the past only because of their economic advancement, and specifically energy availability advancement that mankind had. And if we sort of go back in terms of energy availability, we're going to go back to those systems that sort of existed before current system. So this is where it's sort of this whole situation is happening, and this starts to affect not only Europe, as we mentioned before, a couple of videos before, is it starts to affect US as well. So the price for natural gas hit probably like 12-year high of around like $350 for 1,000 cubic meters, which is pretty high. It's not as high that in the US the price jumped to as high as about close to 500 in about 2006, 7, 8 time frame. But what this US cannot sustain, let's say $3,000 per 1,000 cubic, the sort of things will start to unravel in US at much lower price. So probably as we think somewhere starting from 7, 8, 900,000, there will be a lot of problems in US, and also inflation will sort of increase again, because natural gas goes everywhere in terms of the industrial production. That's the most important in the power generation, electricity markets, and that's going to affect also consumers as well. So this is going to go everywhere. And there was a little bit reduction in sort of inflation in the US. So it went to like 8.5 on CPI read the most recent one, and there was kind of expectation, okay, the inflation sort of problem is kind of behind, but it's not really behind. And the reason for that, as we explained before, is the problem is that there's not enough supply, right? So that's a supply problem at this point. And it's artificially constrained supply of energy, to be specific, that's affecting everything else, and including affecting the supply chains as well. Also, there is some problems in China. All of us are aware of that, but there is this energy problem that's really creating all of this situation, and this extremely dangerous actual situation. Because simply, societies may unravel, because it's eventually gets to the point that food is going to be too expensive, and many people in the sort of, say, lower income level get to the point of near starvation, and there will be just simply unrest. And going to that, for example, we notice in Ukraine the price of like protein, meat specifically, and some fats. The Ukraine has like traditional staple is a pork fat. It went up about like 40 to 50% in the past months, just in the months. Ukraine probably will never experience hunger unless it's artificially created. But it's more sort of relevant for like just grains, right? But sort of like upstream production, or sort of more value added production of like such as proteins. It seems like Ukraine starts to develop problems in that area, because the prices start to go up like in very explosive fashion. And so this is kind of like the whole look on all of this food, energy. It's all interrelated, and we also mentioned that more of the fertilizers production are stopping in Germany specifically, we mentioned. So that's also going to affect yields on grains, and grain is a feedstock to create protein. So this is all very, very much interrelated, and as we mentioned before, this is extremely dangerous situation. that, in our opinion, should be addressed by changing actually energy policies, or it's the whole things. This is again, couldn't say more. It's extremely dangerous situation. Now, on top of it, in terms of energy supply, also Russia is actively trying to constrain energy supply specifically to Europe, because it helps to to kind of create this boiling point in Europe essentially. So for that reason, the supplies through Nord Stream 1 stopped, as we all know. What is happening again? If you remember, there is a country called Kazakhstan. It's a former Soviet republic. They produce a lot of crude oil and also actual natural gas. But mostly, we're going to be talking more about crude oil. If you remember, they supply crude oil to Russia. There's a pipeline that goes to Russia and goes to Novorossiysk, which is seaport, and through that, Kazakhstan exports its crude oil. So in the past, about 2 months ago, Russia sort of briefly stopped supply of passage of Kazakh oil through Russia. Now they did it again. So as you can see, Russia is trying actively manage the situation to create this, to magnify, to exaggerate sort of the problems that sort of stem from the leadership in the West, that is, in our opinion, making wrong choices for the society in the West. And as you can see, so they kind of like in agreements, right? The leadership of the West trying to constrain, and then Russian leadership tries to constrain energy supply. So if you really think about this, if you making this, making moves the same that your sort of enemy makes, you have probably to be wrong, because you cannot move in the same direction, because you need to move in the opposite direction to your enemy, right? In general, just like if you think this as a conceptual discussion. So this is, as we said, the danger of this, that we may experience like sort of like a heart attack in the economies and in industrial production in Europe, that will lead to shortages of literally everything, and nobody knows how it's actually going to sort of show up, but we may experience something that we haven't experienced so far in a while. Now let's actually switch to the front line. And in general, there is not much of a changes. The only thing, there was attack at Donetsk Bridge in Kherson. Allegedly, it was almost, not completely destroyed, but it was destroyed enough so that's totally not possible at this point for the troops, or generally just not possible. So there's enough of severe damage to it that it's cannot be used by a Russian army at this point. There's still that dam and a short bridge near the dam, near Novokakhovka, so that's still functioning more or less. And also unclear situation with railroad bridge. So there's still supply for Russian troops on Kherson bridgehead. And then also Ukrainian army is attacking some of the ammunition depots, specifically in Luhansk region, and I believe also in even some Rostov on Don here, there were attacks there. But as we discussed, we believe that this is it's not sort of promising path to change the course of the war, because at this point, I would say Ukraine is slowly losing the sort of the war. Also, Ukraine, the chief commander of Ukrainian army mentioned that the Ukrainian troops lost about 9,000 soldiers since the beginning of the war. As we mentioned before, we think the number is actually much higher. It's definitely above 20,000 soldiers, probably less than 25,000, somewhere in that ballpark, probably like 22, 23. That's probably something that's more realistic. So this is the first admission of you know, heavy losses. It's probably not sort of full admission of what's going on, but before there was not even discussion of such a number, and this was not discussed in the society, and the number was kept secret. So we still think that the number is being kept secret, but at least there is sort of movement in the right direction. Russian side is also not reporting number of dead soldiers, so basically both sides are keeping it secret and don't report to the public the numbers. Russian losses are somewhat similar, somewhat, I would say, less, about 3,000-4,000 soldiers, something along that line. But if you include this forced conscripts and just some of them volunteers from the Luhansk and Donetsk region captured parts, and then the losses are probably more or less equal on both sides. As we understand, Russia is at least, well, definitely 3.5 times larger than Ukraine. And for Ukraine to be successful in defending itself, it simply cannot sustain one-to-one losses. At least it has to be 3.5 times less, and so that's why we're saying that Ukraine is slowly but surely losing at this point, because Ukraine simply does not have the same amount of resources as Russia does. In the way things go, if, let's say, we simply extrapolate what's going on, Ukraine will lose, obviously, for that reason, just for that reason. Now let's actually walk through the front line, as we always do, in a clockwise fashion, starting from the north and going down first south and then west. So the situation along the state border was more or less stable. Some exchange of artillery fire, but not really much going on. Now let's move to Kharkiv region. Things here are so far quiet. We're not sure. Apparently, Russian command is satisfied with this buffer that they created, and plus they need resources in other areas where they're actively sort of pursuing goals, and where they have this offensive that they started 2 days ago. So let's actually look at what's going on in the Izyum bridgehead. There were again attacks here towards Novodmitrivka from Kurulka area, but essentially Russian command is trying to figure out where there is a weak point in Ukrainian defenses, with the main idea of actually moving towards Bervinkova, because that will create the biggest sort of bang for the buck for the Russian command, and biggest opportunity, including the disorderly withdrawal of Ukrainian troops. There was also a sort of attack against this village Krasnopilya and Dolina, where it's a sort of typical area, but it seems to us this was just more a distraction. Overall, the Ukrainian defense is held here, and nothing, sort of no changes so far. Now let's move to North Donbass section of the front line. So here was a pretty busy day. There was, Russian attacks towards Soledar, Bakhmut, this area near Vesela. So your typical areas where Russian troops attack. There's even more attacks in the southern sort of sector of this North Donbass front line. Mostly, it looks like Russian command is somewhat sort of obsessed with capturing this area, I think in the hope that they think that they can then kind of like attack Bakhmut from the south, because apparently Russian troops, and specifically Wagner mercenaries, so far bogged down on the eastern outskirts of Bakhmut, and apparently the losses are too high, not sustainable, given the constraint of Russian lack of sort of reserves and replenishment. So they're trying to sort of be creative around it, and also attacking kind of like from the south in a hope to sort of to capture Bakhmut from the south. So far, Ukrainian defenses here held as well. No Russian progress on this section of the front line. Now let's move to the area west of Donetsk. Here, attacks all typical, the same locations, right? So this attack was from northeast, was idea of creating a circlement around Avdiivka. All of this three-prong attack near Pisky. Nothing new here. No changes as well in the front line. The same more or less. Then also attack near Novomykhailivka. Russian troops managed to manage some gains in the past. So Russian National Command is apparently attempting to sort of further exploit the situation, but so far they didn't have luck. Then let's just look at the situation. This is map from yesterday near Pisky. Nothing new here. The same sort of attacks at Open, Novodyane, Prvomaiske, Nevelsky. So the situation basically status quo for now. From what we're seeing, Ukrainian troops are sustaining infantry, sustaining heavy losses from Russian artillery. So this goes on. Eventually, Ukrainian lines will be sent out enough for the Russian infantry to be able to gain control of the ground. But we don't know when it's going to happen, because it's also another unknown is Ukrainian reserves that Ukrainian command can throw into this action. Now let's look at Zaporizhia front line. So there was attack at Velika Novosivka. It looks like it was probing attack. So again, it goes to the our sort of theory or assumption that Russian command is trying to revive this whole idea over the northern pincer and the southern pincer, because you can see that the Russian troops are very active on the Izyum bridgehead, and then they are becoming very active in this area of the southern pincer, except they're trying to obviously destroy this largest stronghold of Ukrainian troops in Velika Novosivka. They also tried to destroy Vuhledar, so they're trying for the sort of weaknesses in Ukrainian defenses in a hope to kind of exploit that opportunity down the road. Now let's jump to Kherson bridgehead and see what's going on here. So as you can see, Russian troops kind of created this salient by attacking village Blagodatne, and essentially by the morning of 22nd they captured most of the village and squeezed Ukrainian troops outside of the village. A little bit unclear if they gain control of this road or not, but and it's still unclear the whole purpose of this attack. What we do know is that the attack was carried out by 247th Regiment of 7th Airborne Division. So as you remember, the 108th Regiment of the same division was attacking straight from Snigurivka about probably 2 weeks or 10 days ago. That attack was not successful. So now they were more successful. It does seem that Russian command is trying to increase this kind of bridgehead on Inhulets River. Unclear if this is related to any other plans to sort of expand attacks, or because based on our understanding, Russian troops don't have sort of enough to really actively sort of carry out offensive here, and given that also Ukrainian command is actively working on destroying supply lines for the Russian troops, even though they not completely destroyed. And as you can see from the attack, that those supply lines still working and providing sufficient support for the Russian troops. This whole area is where we show here might have been evacuated by Ukrainian troops. So we not 100% certain that Ukrainian troops are still here. It might be that the front line now goes kind of like basically from like Snigurivka and along this road at this point and towards Prvomaisk. So this might be under full Russian control at this point. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow. Bye bye.